Hi there, welcome to Beyond the Dollar Signs, where we talk about financial concepts and hope to provide financial clarity. Today, I have my producer, Bill Tucker, with us today, and we have a special guest, Yau Lee, who's a family law attorney. She's a partner at Necklace, Cohad, Lopez & Whitaker, LLP, out of San Francisco, and her work takes her all over Bay Area counties in California. Yau, I'd like to welcome you to the podcast today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I know we've talked about this for a few weeks, so I've been looking forward to this day. So as we get started, I have, of course, a number of questions I'd love to ask you. Today, we're going to talk about premarital agreements. And in my practice, we do a lot of financial planning, and this comes up a lot. So, before we get started with those questions, I'd really like to learn a little bit about your backstory. Why family law? Why premarital agreements? And maybe you can share with us.
Yeah, happy to. So I will explain my backstory in two sides. One is why did I get into the legal field, and how did I end up doing family law? One would never imagine when they were kids that they would ever become a divorce attorney. So in terms of how I got into the area of the law, started when I was young, as a teenager. I came to the US with my parents from Hong Kong when I was 14. And when I was younger, I dealt with a good numbers of attorneys. But what I didn't like about these attorneys that I interacted with is that they tend to talk to us from the top down. And I feel like there's a lot of difficult concepts like immigration. So we dealt with like immigration attorney when I was younger. And a lot of these legal concepts are very difficult. And I remember us sitting there with my parents, not understanding a word that they said. And it's pretty much like, this is what I said. I'm the attorney. Do as what I say. So as I'm growing up, I'm like, let's approach this a little bit differently. Let's learn how to speak the language of law, that where I'm able to explain things in very simple terms that people can understand it, rather than a top-down approach. It's more of a lateral, where we can all sit down and figure out how to problem solve. Now, in terms of family law, how I got into it is that my second semester of law school, I was lucky enough to spend the entire semester working in San Francisco Superior Court for a family law judge. That was a great experience. Her name is Judge Monica Wiley, the second African-American judge in the San Francisco bench. And what I loved about family law is that the clientele are very diverse. I mean, all of us probably know someone who got married, and all of us probably know someone who got divorced. So the issues are very relatable, and I was able to use my Cantonese and Mandarin skills to help my client. So that's pretty much how I got into this.
Wow, that's an amazing story. Yeah, I love that. Can you talk a little bit about the contract of marriage and what couples are getting into when they create that bond?
So I have to say the contract of marriage is a contract that's exists for a very long time, and no one cares to read about it or know about it. It's the biggest contract that anybody ever will sign, and no one cared to read about it. So in simple terms, what is the contract of marriage? It's a bunch of people, lawmakers, make this book of rules that encompasses the California Family Code. And I had to say, family codes are very thick. So you're pretty much married into these codes that these lawmakers put together for us to govern our life, our people's marriages in the time of divorce. So a lot of time people don't know what they commit into because they never read it and they don't even know anything about it. Isn't that scary, Mark? I'm sure you will never ask a client to sign on to anything that you hope that they, to plan their financial future without them reading what they're signing into.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you sit down and you go through disclosures. And I've seen this both on the financial services side, on the real estate lending side, right? Where there's stacks of contracts and things that clients need to read and DocuSign and have at least an understanding of that. I don't remember going through any of that getting married, right? I think about what contract. It's just, I think of just the certificate, right? I mean, nobody hands me a book and say, okay, you need to read the disclosures and make sure you understand these key points. So, I mean, how common? I mean, there's not really a process that somebody needs to go through to get married, right? I mean, what's the process of, you get married and you get a marriage certificate, but it doesn't seem like there's paperwork that's involved with that.
Exactly. And Mark, I think the importance of you having this kind of podcast is to at least let people know that when they get married, they are married into a big book of rules. Mm-hmm. So let's be curious. Let's be curious about what these rules are. And I think the first step, the most inexpensive step, is just to schedule a consultation or conversation with a family law attorney, just to have some basic understanding of these rules. And then the prospective spouses, future spouses, can talk about whether they need to have more control over these rules. So a prenup, a premarital agreement, is you writing the rules with your future spouse. Like, I don't like, let's say, well, I'm not sure if everybody knows that California is a community property estate. Right. And I always tell clients this, you go into the good and the bad. And the good is you share income, you share whatever you have during marriage equally. And you share whatever bad, such as debt, liability, equally. Right. And a premarital agreement can help kind of maybe rewrite that or change that. And I mean, I will give just a very simple example. Two people going to a car dealership to buy a car. And imagine you can tell the dealer, I want to change the contract XYZ the way that they wanted it. Wouldn't that be nice?
Right. Yeah. I think about it when you've got two couples that come in and there's different stages. It may be a young couple doesn't have a lot of assets at that time, right? So I think of different scenarios. And then clients that I run into later in life, they've accumulated assets, they've got families, they've got trust, they've got a lot of things that they've accumulated to that point in their lives. So I can see from, a logical standpoint, each side has its own balance sheet of not only assets, but things that they've done over their lifetime. And so I can see where logically it probably makes sense to kind of sit down and think about how these assets and how the plans they've created to this point in their life will change when that marriage happens.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think having a frank conversation with your future spouse about money, money is not a taboo thing. If you're able to talk about money, you can talk about anything. Right. And wouldn't that set a nice stage at the beginning of your marriage that two of you can sit down and talk about things that could be uncomfortable? And I think it's a great sign to build a stronger relationship.
Agree. So when you talk about, a couple's coming in for the first time, I'm thinking about, is it there's somebody's thinking about marriage, and do you see people come individually, or do you see them come as a couple, or both? I mean, what is the typical client that you run into?
All sorts of scenarios. A lot of time, most of the time, is one person wants a prenuptial agreement, a prenup. And then that person will go and consult with an attorney of their wish list. Mm. And then the other spouse, the other future spouse will have to find their own attorney so that they both would have an attorney help them explain the prenup or the draft and then come into an agreement. But the best case that I've seen that is successful is that the couple already talked about the terms. They already have that discussion ahead of time.
I see.
So they are just simply need one attorney to start a draft and the other attorney to review to make sure that everything is fair, that the contract reflects what they each want.
Mm.
So yeah, different. I get clients in the different stages of that discussion.
So each potential spouse, right? Each person in the relationship should have their own attorney. It's not just one attorney that handles that agreement.
Yes, the law has changed where now it requires two attorneys because here is the rationale. If both, because some couple, one may have a higher, may have more money, let's say, may have more bargaining power on the service. But when you bring in two competent attorney to the table, then you kind of equalize the playing field of the couple, that they both can negotiate in an arm's length distance and to make sure that this prenup is enforceable.
I see.
Right? You want a contract that's enforceable. Like, imagine you spend all that money to draft an agreement and then later it's like, oh, it doesn't mean anything.
I see.
I have I have numbers of folks who just, each of them put something together, just label it premarital agreement and then notarize it. And then 10 years later thinking this prenup is valid. Sorry. No attorney was representing them. All you had is a notarized signature. It didn't mean anything.
So it does need to be filed in the courts then, or the document needs to be recorded. Is that the process, like a living trust, or what makes that contract valid?
The contract is valid when both prospective spouse signed, and it's a confidential agreement. You don't need to record it anywhere other than you have it.
I see.
And let's say divorce happened. The first question that we always ask is, do you have a prenup?
I see.
So the prenup will help the attorney or the party to guide what it looks like when they separate. Wouldn't that be nice? It's so clear. Save all the money and fights later. Yeah.
I understand. These days, is the divorce rate still above 50%? I mean, what do you see? Is that a fair number to say?
Let's just say that we have gotten very, very, very busy since COVID.
I see. Yes. People, I mean, have gotten to know each other again and realize maybe it doesn't work, or what do you think? Why was that the case?
I mean, imagine one of us, like, is one spouse work from the office 5 days a week and then travel all the time, and all of a sudden you put all of them together with no kids, and then they homeschool the kids. Wow, that's when you like magnify some of the issues that people don't address. The thing is, spouses, a lot of time we heard of this word resentment.
Sure. When
resentment builds, that's when sometimes divorce happens.
As part of the divorce, do you also discuss not only finances, but what about if there's children involved in custody, and how does that? I'm curious about that.
Custody issues, I have to say, is the most difficult issue in our work. Because imagine this, mom and dad take care of the kids' whole life. And because now that they are divorced, there's a breakup, the kids have to shuttle between homes. It's like, used to be mom and dad do bedtime routine, and now it's just one parent do it some day of the week, and then the other parent do it other days of the week. So custody issue, as a family law attorney, we think of it from the best interest of the children. We don't, for our firm at least, we don't care what the parent wants. It's about what is best for the kids.
Gotcha.
Let's say, imagine like a 1-year-old, you want them, like, let's say this parent wants it 1 month at a time, and then 1 month at the other parent. That's not in the best interest of the children. So as family law attorney, we have a lot of responsibility when it comes to child custody issues, because we're trying to stabilize the children's disruption. We try not to have so much disruption in these kids' life that just because adults make a decision to separate.
Mm-hmm. So imagine a young couple talking about the family custody. Young couple doesn't have children yet, but do they already talk about provisions to when they have children, future children? Or is that something that the premarital agreement can be amended prior to, what's that process like if they're young and just starting a family, or maybe that's 3 or 4 years down the line?
Yeah. So for child custody issue or child support issues, we don't include that in the premarital agreement.
I see.
Because these are the children's rights. Child support the right belongs to the child. So we don't put anything down for that. But they can talk about, are they planning to buy, let's say, a home together? And what are the agreement between who pays down payment, the mortgage, or potentially spousal support? Let's say one spouse is thinking about becoming a stay-at-home parent. What would that financial circumstance look like during marriage, and if anything, like if someday divorce happens?
I guess that you've given us a lot to think about. We definitely need to bring you back on the show to talk about talk about some of the tea, right? Some of the things that, because we talk about in my world the logical things, right? But to me it sounds like such an emotional process. And so I'd love to. I know we don't have a lot of time today to get into that, but I'd love to bring you back and talk about some of the emotional challenges. I'm sure you see that a lot, resistance and those type of things to just the whole process in general. Yau, if somebody wants to connect with you, what would be the best way to reach you?
I would say 3 ways.
Okay.
LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so shoot me a message. I'm happy to get back. My email, yao@nclwlaw.com. Or simply look me up on Google. We have a firm website, contact our office.
Yeah, and we'll include that for our viewers in the show notes today of how to reach out to you directly. But again, I love to, again, thank you so much for being here today. We look forward to having you as a guest in the future. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, no. Yao, I really appreciate you coming on, because I think a lot of times, most of the time when people get married, they think of it being a spiritual unification. They think of it perhaps in religious terms. And it is useful to be remembered and reminded that it's also a legal union as well. And I appreciate your easy, common sense approach to that. You have achieved at least part of your goal. You've learned to speak law in regular people language. So thank you for sharing that with us. Mark, for people listening to this conversation who would like to maybe have a conversation with you in terms of finances and maybe even just an initial conversation to see whether you're a good fit, what is the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Same for me. LinkedIn, my contact will be in the show notes to my calendar to schedule a Zoom consultation or just have a conversation.
That's great. And do that. And the other thing you can do is, if you are listening to this podcast and you're not a subscriber yet, become a subscriber. That's easy. Just hit the follow button. And that way, when Mark releases new episodes of his podcast, you're notified and you can listen to them. The other thing I would ask is that if you like this podcast, share it with people. Let them know you like it. In this world, you get all kinds of bots and crazy things telling you all kinds of recommendations, and you don't know who they came from or where they came from. But in this case, if a friend or somebody tells you about something, it makes a big difference. It makes word of mouth promotion really invaluable, as a matter of fact. So if you would do that, we'd very much appreciate it. Until next time, I'm Bill Tucker on behalf of Mark and everybody associated. Thank you for taking the time to listen today, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Dollar Signs, Financial Clarity. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at www.advisors360pwm.com or give us a call at 408-778-8280. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Advisors 360. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.